Hi everyone, thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining us again for another episode of Net Builders. Today we have Jasmine Rice here, the Open Space Healing CEO here. Um, would you like to tell a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, like you said, I'm Jasmine Rice. Grew up in Tacoma. That's kind of, my stomping grounds, my base of operations. And yeah, my aim, first and foremost, is just to make spiritual healing accessible to people so that they have the tools they need to do their own healing. I think a lot of people are conditioned to look to other people or like outside things, and that it's just about a, magical sensation in which you're suddenly better. And that's just not how it works.
Gotcha.
It becomes intimidating, but just having some of the basic information and having ways to gain more information on your own that fits you so that you can heal in the way that best applies to you personally.
Definitely, definitely. I think that's great. Uh, Fortunately, we actually were able to have a conversation in person at a event that we went to. I think it was last Friday, and I remember having a conversation talking about how this whole COVID thing has caused a lot of distress. If maybe for lack of better terms, I'll say distress. A lot of broken people. How does how does what you do and the information you provide, really help these people get back on the right track as far as healing goes?
Yeah, I mean, part of it with that stress came for some people a lot of extra time, maybe more time than they really care to like sit and be alone with themselves or confront how the people immediately close to them affect them.
Mhm.
So I think a part of it is that just like now that people have been forced to confront the things and the issues that they have, their triggers, just starting from the beginning. I um, right now my focus is really with chakra work. I have root chakra care packages, which are really just to kind of get your brain thinking about the things that have to do with the root chakra and having items that you can associate with that thing so your brain is constantly being pushed towards other things that are going to help you heal in that area.
Okay.
So the root chakra is the first one, um, kind of at the beginning of the pool. Um, Considered low vibrational. And I think that's something where a lot of people want to like head straight for the third eye because it's all, shiny and appealing. And there's a lot about that that's uncomfortable too. But, people just want to be psychic or people just want to get the sensations that make them feel special. But it's really starting at like what makes you feel insecure, um, what makes you feel safe, what is it that's currently like nagging at you that you may not be confronting. A lot of people are insomniacs. Why can't you sleep? And like really thinking about that instead of just finding a way to avoid it or just being like, oh, I'm an insomniac, like actually addressing what's causing it and like seeking out things that are going to help you heal, even if it's not conventional or conventional, because it's all about what resonates with you.
Okay. All right. And I love the fact that you use that word conventional. So, I mean, that's w- so there is, like you said, somebody who has insomnia. You could either accept that you have insomnia, like, hey, I just have insomnia, that's just a diagnostic, or what you're saying is there's actually something you can do about that. I mean, it's like you said, it's not traditional or conventional with, by I don't know whose definition, but but that's, I think that's pretty interesting. Could we check out some of your items? I'm very interested in it. Yeah, my sister tried to talk to me about it before, but I have this thing where I don't listen a lot, or I take bits and pieces.
Yeah.
And yeah, but I think that this would be a great opportunity for you to be a re-educate me if possible.
Yeah. And I mean, that's part of it too. Sometimes you're just not like ready to address those things, and that's okay. You do it when you feel led to. It's just about being open and listening to yourself so that you know when it's that time. But
Okay.
the first one, I got the root chakra care package. This is the $50 one, but you get a votive candle, a little tea candle as well. Just, for meditation. Of course, there's a bunch of different reasons people like candles. I mean, I honestly just like looking at fire, but I feel like it's a lot easier to meditate sometimes when there's a focal point, especially for people who feel like they can't just shut their brain off. And that's not always the objective, but just having that focal point that you can start mindlessly noticing the ways that it moves and how it's kind of following the patterns your mind is leading you down.
Okay.
I have this protective charm, and it has lavender, selenite, and black tourmaline in it. When I created it, I was more at the time focused on like protection from abuse, especially as far as women are concerned. And lavender, well, I read in a book a while back that lavender fairies are very harsh and violent towards abusive men. And so that's kind of what sparked the idea. It can be used just for general protection as well, but there's a story behind it.
Gotcha.
And then the crystal pendant, let me hard to see. That is onyx, I believe.
Okay.
And get a smoky quartz crystal point. And a crystal heart. This one's carnelian, but some of them have a hematite. But
That's pretty.
yeah, and I include like little bits of information about each of the stones, so the person has an idea of how it vibrates. You can always Google, but I didn't want to just leave people with a box of rocks, especially when I'm like marketing, especially towards people who just aren't as familiar.
That's where I fall in. So like for instance, that heart, like what is that called?
So that's carnelian.
Uh-huh.
And if you look at the little card I put in here, hopefully it's in here. Some of them I think are missing, but its associated signs are Taurus, Cancer, Leo, Scorpio. It's ruled by the sun, helps calm anger, assists with focus while meditating, abundance, cleansing, healing from trauma. So when you carry it around, you're going to kind of be brought to that same vibration, especially if you're meditating with it, and you're going to just start healing in those areas. Of course, it takes more than just the stone to do the healing. Like, it's just going to help you get geared towards that train of thought, but you still have to do the work.
Okay.
Bring yourself through like the emotional roller coasters that come along with like actively addressing, triggers.
Okay. Well, do you provide services that actually, guide people through the process of that healing?
Yeah, so right now I'm working on building a curriculum for each of the chakras. I've gotten started with the root chakra one, just kind of need to do the part that's the assignments and stuff, like really the work. I made a PowerPoint so far in a playlist, but like, making assignments, I think, it's like the part of being a teacher that makes it just like being a student. But and I'm a procrastinator. I can admit to that. But yeah, so I want to have those courses set up soon. My original idea was kind of to like do a course that's maybe a week long and then like wrap it up with a party. Of course, that takes a whole lot more planning, so that's to be announced. But but that's kind of my Leo rising coming out, just needing to
I think it's
needed
I
the
think it's a
party,
great
needed to
idea.
celebrate.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, especially so the party at the end, that's kind of like like a graduation party, right?
Yeah, pretty much, and just a way to celebrate learning, really. And just, I mean, I like parties. I think it'd be cool just to have like a party, especially where that energy is resonating as much as possible, so that we kind of like I went through a course for Reiki healing, and a part of the Reiki, like a part of becoming a Reiki master, is being attuned to the Reiki energy. So it's kind of just similar, like not, in the formal, like this is how you become a Reiki master. I'm not claiming that I'm doing that, yet. I might do that at some point as I get better with the whole Reiki thing and start actually practicing it. That's coming up soon too. But just still like you learn something, let's just all vibe together on that subject and kind of raise all of our energies in that area.
Mm. Nice, nice. And then look forward to the next step.
Yeah.
Gotcha, gotcha. So that word, what is it? Reiki?
Yeah, it's a form of healing that when you look at it, it's because I think it was developed in Japan, but it's not something that only exists in that medium, kind of like any of these other spiritual tools. It looks like there's something else that looks just like it in another culture, but
Okay.
Reiki has become really popular over the past few years as a like specific way to kind of get in tune with the energy of the universe and use it for healing. But like you can do it on yourself or another person, but it's not that you are necessarily healing that person. You're just kind of directing the energy within their body so that they can heal themselves.
Oh, wow. That's an interesting concept there. So how long does the curriculum for that, like how long does it take to study to, you know, to call yourself a master in that area?
It kind of varies on who's teaching it. I think the course isn't really what makes you a master. Like you get the information, but it's really through the practice.
Okay.
Like technically, I've been through a course. I could call myself a Reiki master right now because I've been through the course and I've been attuned, but still, I need to do more practice to before I feel comfortable actually calling myself a master at Reiki.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. So, what got you into this entire field? Like, was there a point in life or an event that led you to this?
I think it's multiple points, and really, like it's almost like something you might compare to Harry Potter. I'm a nerd, a little surprised, but and especially because I read the books. I didn't really care about the movies. So
Gotcha.
Harry Potter,
Gotcha.
especially when you go through the books and have things detailed out, it's like all, the little witches and wizards when they're growing up, like they're doing these little acts of magic throughout their childhood. And especially like in Harry's case, because he didn't grow up in that world, like those things happened, but they were written off, and people who knew that he had powers were hiding it from him. So
Mm.
I think I had a lot of little experiences as a kid, and I also just was interested in, I liked fairies, I liked astrology, and then as you grow up, you kind of forget about it, get distracted, and there are just a lot of different points where it pivoted for me. I grew up Christian. When I was 17, I started going to a church called God's Gang, which was, very niche, ran by a pastor who had been a gang member. So it was kind of just building off of that, making it accessible at that level. But that's where I really started learning about spirituality.
Mm.
Like, especially like in the context of being a Christian, it's just so separate. Like, it's so obvious when you look at the Bible that all, spirituality is like happening and it's an active part of people's daily lives, but we just are like, oh, well, that's how it was then back in the past. life was just more magical, and then God decided we didn't deserve it or whatever. I feel like I even heard like not that specific phrasing, but I heard that growing up, that it's just, well, that's how things were then, but we don't have access to that anymore now. I think that was my first time like I learned about meditating, and especially the pastor's wife, Lisa Mackey. She was like my first spiritual mentor. And I got really deep into Christianity and like a hunger for it, just because I was first being introduced to the spiritual aspect of it. And that's later finding like that's what I was really into, you know, more so than, and not Christianity, because it's very, it's just another way of interpreting that information. It's just been used in such terrible ways that it's like, I definitely understand why a whole lot of people are very jaded, and I've been very jaded now. But you know, at some point you have to grow up and realize people do terrible things, but there's still some good stuff here that I can use. But from there, became more and more spiritual. I got into Steven Universe, and that kind of got me really into the gemstones.
Gotcha. I love that show.
Yeah, so that was just another thing that really like ignited something in me. So it's constantly seeking out gemstones and really wanting to be able to identify them by sight. I feel like that was something I was really excited to be able to do. And now I'm like, you know, I can't identify like every stone by sight, but I've still, you know, I've gone really far there. So it's nice to like look back at something that I felt so excited to be able to do and realize now I'm kind of there. And then later on, recognizing that my middle name, LaFay, means the fairy, got me kind of really looking at fairies again, which was, you know, an interest kind of when I was a kid, or, you know, Peter Pan, again, the book, not so much the movie. But so as I read more about fairies, it just kind of all became a rabbit hole from there.
Okay. That's, yeah, you actually did have a couple of events that actually came together to create that, which is I love Peter Pan and shows. I'm a big nerd too, so I'm with you on that. So during meditation, what is the actual goal during meditation? I hear a lot of people speak of meditation, but I've never understood it, and I would probably benefit from it a lot, like just to sit down and clear my head. Personally, I can't figure out how to do it, so I might have to get one of the candles you were talking about, having that focal point. That actually makes a lot of sense, because I can never clear my mind. As soon as my eyes close, I'm thinking about like 50 different things, and I could probably get one of those TVs to shut off, but then there's still 49 other TVs playing on my head. So what is the goal of meditation? Like, how is, you know, what's the goal of it?
I think the ultimate goal is just to be, how do I make it words? Just to kind of get your train of thought to match up with how the universe is vibing, to the point where it's not a separate thing anymore, if that makes sense. Sometimes when I'm talking about the spiritual stuff, it's like hard for me to make it words, because I know it as like an intangible feeling, and I gotta make it a real thing.
That makes sense. It is something that's intangible, so it's hard to explain it, you know? I mean, you can't hold it, you can't, you know, physically see it. So I can imagine that is real hard to explain. I appreciate you taking the time to try to explain it to me. I really do. But that I guess that kind of makes sense. Like when you say it, I automatically think of like a train track, you know, where we're derailed off of the train track most of the time. And meditation kind of puts you right on the train track, to where you're not swaying back and forth. That's kind of what I get, like when you're explaining it. Like,
yeah,
am I somewhere near?
yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's one way of interpreting it. And I mean, you'll find it's like whatever way I say it, your brain is going to turn it into something that makes it work for you.
Okay.
So, and that's really what the goal is. Like, the point isn't to stop thinking, because you really can't stop thinking. But when you just kind of like, as the thoughts come, you let them be what they're going to be and let them drift off. And then soon you just end up on a path where it feels thoughtless because you're so aligned with what the universe is doing, and you're not making yourself separate from it. You're not in your ego anymore or thinking about people's opinions of your thoughts. You're just having that train that you're not trying to control anymore. And that's really the point, that you're not trying to manhandle your existence.
That's manhandle your existence. Huh, that makes sense. So are there any kind of characteristics or traits that a person has that makes this more easy for them to achieve? I don't know if I'm wording that correctly.
Yeah. I'd say, I mean, the way I interpret that best is through astrology.
Okay.
And I think that's one area where people have a lot of misconceptions, because we all know our sun sign, and it's been presented in a way where like that's all astrology is. It's just I'm a Cancer and that's the end of the story. But when you look at your birth chart, which I mean, there are tons of apps. One I use is Time Nomad for the iPhone. There's also Astro Matrix, I think, is the one I was using when I had an Android. But you just put in your birth time, date, and the place you were born. And you can get a chart that shows, you know, where the sun was. I mean, that's the one we all know, where the sun was when you were born. But then, you know, where was Mercury, the moon, all of that kind of gives you different information about who you are as a person. And, you know, not to suggest that like all of that information is you and that's the end of your story, but it's just, these are your tendencies. This is what you can kind of expect to happen in certain areas of your life. And ultimately, you still get to decide what your life is going to be. But really just, I mean, like the Bible or anything else, it's another tool to kind of just help you understand yourself and your place and what you're supposed to do with all of that.
Okay, I had no idea that. Like you said, it's a common misconception. I really thought that zodiacs was just a sun sign. I had no idea that the other planets were actually a factor, and in the explanation in that. I had no idea. That's actually pretty cool. Who was that app again for the Android?
Astro Matrix.
Cool. Definitely want to check that out.
I think it's not the best. It's kind of, it has like ads and stuff. I'm sure there's a better one. That's just the one that comes to mind right now. But
start. It's a start. I gotta start somewhere.
Yeah, but so when you ask like what traits might make a person like just have an easier time with the spirituality, I think like if you look at your 12th house placement, because that's the house that kind of rules spirituality and is tied to like, you know, being closer to the veil, as far as like, you know, the veil between life and death, or the veil between this dimension and that dimension. Water signs, of course, are really intuitive, so we kind of tend to be spiritually inclined. But then maybe a Sagittarius who's really into the wisdom aspect of it might be drawn to it and have an easier time just understanding it from that angle. But, you know, I also know a Sagittarius who is a very empirical thinker and doesn't really believe in anything. So it all depends on not just where the planet is, or not just what sign it's in, but what house, and how it relates to other signs in your chart. That's all stuff that I'm still not an expert on. I'm still studying, but once you get opened up to it, it's it's a
Def-
lot to uncover.
I'm definitely see. I can only imagine we're probably just scratching the surface right now because I have a million questions, but I'd have you on here all day. Like I have like so many questions. So I believe I'm a Taurus, so I imagine us bullheaded Tauruses will probably just walk around in a glass house and just knock everything over with our horns. We don't. I don't know. From what I hear, we don't take kindly to new information.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll be honest. I'll be honest. I'm closed-minded a lot. I am closed-minded a lot, unless but I think also it depends on how information is presented to me.
Yeah.
I think that's a big factor in that whole thing.
Yeah. And that, because I have Mars and Taurus. I don't want to be discussing too much of my personal chart because, but just to use an example of how things can look differently, like, because the sun is like who you are at your core, whereas Mars is more about how you get what you want. So you might be generally, we'll say, skeptical, and I know I have a sister who's a Taurus, so like really just like you can't get her to do anything that she did not already intend to do herself. Like there's just no way to
That
it's
sounds
very
about
frustrating,
right.
but I think it's really cute, honestly. Like she's she just turned 18. So
Okay. Gotcha.
but for me it's like when it comes to specifically like wanting something, once I have an idea about it, about how to get it, I'm going to stick on that train, and I don't really take a whole lot of advice about it. Like I try to be open-minded to advice and at least like not shut anybody down. I do sometimes just, but ultimately I'm still going to stay on whatever I feel is the correct way to get what I want.
Okay.
So it kind of makes it a more specific interaction with that sign.
Okay. All right. Cool. So how can our viewers get in contact with you? How can they um yeah, how can they get in contact with you? Through business.
I have a Facebook. It is at Diggy Groove, and that's a whole other story. And then my Instagram is at Big Open Spaces Healing. I have an Etsy page, but I don't know how to verbalize that. It's
Okay.
just a URL, but that's on my Facebook anyways. So yeah,
Okay.
those are the two main ways. My email address is diggygroove@gmail.com.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And when we'll put all of that inside of the description of the video. That way, it'd be easily accessible for our viewers to be able to contact you with any questions or any product information that they need at all.
Okay.
Oh, I appreciate you sitting here having this conversation with me and enlightening me and humoring me because, like we said, I'm Taurus, so I'm horrible, skeptical with everything, but I
Yeah.
love information. I love learning about something new. But definitely feel like we only scratched the surface on the whole topic because I have a million more questions. But like I said, I'd have you on here forever.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate you taking the time to answer the questions that I asked today.
No problem.
All right. Is there anything that you want to tell our audience at all?
Um, well, check out Positive Vibes in the Commons Mall. Love them to death. They're, like family to me, and they just had a new baby too. So really go give them money. Also, I have a friend trying to start a community center in Federal Way, Evan Cook, restoringminds.com with a Z at the end of minds.
Okay.
And there's he sells sweatshirts and t-shirts, and a part of the proceeds go towards opening up that community center.
That's outstanding. That's excellent. That's excellent. I'll definitely put that in the description as well, so people can get to it. Oh, thank you
Oh,
for.
and my sister, she makes shirts.
Oh,
Her information is Be True Joy. Yeah, I think if you look it up on Facebook, it's B period True Joy.
B period True Joy. Gotcha.
All right, I'm done shouting people.
No, not a problem at all. It was nice for you to do so. Most people, when I ask them if they have anything to say, most people do not shout other people out. So, I mean, that just shows what kind of person you are. It's like, hey, I got a platform I'm putting my friends on. So, hey, nothing wrong with that at all. But thanks for joining me today. This is about all the time that we have, and I appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
All right, we'll see you guys next time on Net Builders. Thank you again, Jasmine, for joining us. And we're